then when we were talking earlier about the addiction, then we realized we were kind of screwed because we didn't want to do anything else with ourselves. So every chance we got, we'd head back to Mozambique or Malawi.
Episode number 385, Overlanding with Luisa and Graeme Bell.
You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast, brought to you by 180 Tech. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to get started in the outdoors or to keep you moving if you're already there. This episode is brought to you in part by Kind. Kind makes delicious, healthy snacks using whole ingredients. If you guys haven't tried it yet, their pressed bars by Kind are the best in my opinion. Go try the mango apple chia. It's awesome. We've got a special offer for you guys to try 20 Kind snacks with their new snack pack. You can enjoy 50% off and free shipping on your first snack pack when you subscribe to it through Snack Club, which is Kind's monthly snacks subscription service. Go to kindsnacks.com/sports for more details. That's kindsnacks.com/sports to learn more and to subscribe to the snack pack.
Hi friends, Kurt here. Hey, today is Thursday, and you know what that means. This is another Thursday repeat show. I pulled out a really cool show. Travis was the host on this one. The show was from episode 183 all the way back in July of 2016. Overlanding Fulltime with the family, Luisa and Graeme Bell. I remember this show was a lot of fun. These people decided to take their family and hit the road and to have some life experiences, and they traveled for years. Now, this is a repeat. What does that mean? That means that we have a brand new show for you also on usually on Fridays. The new show is on Patreon. That's where our premium content is, and by becoming a patron on Patreon of the Adventure Sports Podcast, you get access to all the premium content as well. So I urge you today, please consider how much it might be worth to help support the Adventure Sports Podcast. Keep our show alive and well, and you can have access to the premium life outside the box content. The number one best thing that you can do to help out the Adventure Sports Podcast right now, besides becoming a patron, is to tell your friends about the show. We would love it if everyone out there, every single one of you who are listening right now, would say to a adventure-loving friend, if you haven't checked out the Adventure Sports Podcast yet, give it a listen. That would help us to get the message out. We really appreciate it. And now, on with this show, Overlanding Full-Time with the Family, Luisa and Graeme Bell, from July of 2016.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is your host, Travis. Luisa and Graeme Bell toured the African continent with their kids, Keelan and Jessica, a few years ago. When they got back to their home in South Africa, it didn't take long for the family to realize that they needed to explore more. So they put everything on hold, purchased a Land Rover Defender 130, and outfitted it as an overlander so they could travel and live out of it full time. Now that they've been around Africa a couple times and all the way up to Alaska, I finally caught up with the Bells in Baja, Mexico, where they're relaxing a bit while doing some house sitting.
Hey, Travis, how you doing?
Hi, Travis.
Doing great, thanks. So we caught up with you in Mexico. We were just talking about the heat down there, but it's got to be kind of nice to get off the road for a little bit.
Yeah, it is. When you're on the road, you get into a routine and you get used to it. And then, we live in a tent, in a roof tent, all four of us. And, you get used to that. But when you get back in a house, you kind of go, hey, look at this, indoor plumbing. Hey, look, I can have my own personal space. I can make toast, or just boil a kettle with me, like without having to take everything out the side of the Land Rover first. So the convenience is wonderful, but at the same time, it gets super boring super quick.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the conveniences. I mean, in my intro, I mentioned that you guys decided to do a little bit of touring around Africa, and you had just planned to set out for a little while and go back. And once you realized you were back, obviously you got back to your conveniences, but you guys as a family, if I understand it right, just kind of realized altogether that what you were really doing out living on the road as overlanders was really where you wanted to be. So you chose to leave the conveniences and go back out. So tell me how that all came about and how you really launched into this major expedition that you're on now.
Well, we ran our own business back in South Africa. We had a wonderful home and a rented home we've never owned. And we were burning the candle at both ends, like everyone does. We thought we needed all the fancy stuff and the Volvos and the extra TVs and the 3 PlayStations and the list goes on. And, you'd get in the Land Rover and you'd hit the road and you'd point it off at Mozambique or Malawi or wherever. And you didn't have all that stuff that cramming in your mind. You had the road, you had the Land Rover, and you had your family chatting and laughing and singing to Bar Baran. And that really was just there was such clarity in that, the peace of mind of having massive responsibility of, traveling with your family overland, but at the same time being liberated from all of the crap that ties you down to the modern wage slave kind of lifestyle. For me, that was really it. Just when we came back, in 2010, we drove up to Tanzania from Cape Town, up to Dar es Salaam and then back down again. It was about 6 months trying to run the business at the same time. But it was difficult because we were trying to run the business. We got back home and it was, oh, great, we're back home and look at this as a supermarket and we could go and buy clothing and do all that stuff that for 6 months we weren't able to do up in Africa. Well, we were still in Africa, but I think you know what I mean. But then getting back in, you get into this routine and then, man, it doesn't take long. It took 3 days and we were missing the road.
I think it's the freedom of it that, when you're on the road, you still have the responsibility as a parent, but it's that where you can just go, well, to hell with it. I'm switching off my phone. I don't need to access the internet. I can literally be in the middle of nowhere and I don't give a damn what, I don't care if anyone needs to get hold of me. It's that freedom to say, I'm going. And I think that's what we missed is the fact that we got back and we had to get back into it and the kids had to go back to school. And for the kids, they enjoyed school as most kids do, but it was a case of where they were put into boxes and they had to conform to what the society said, okay, you need to study this and you need to be like that. And for us, we realized when our kids were on the road, they fought less, they were happier. So
we fought less, we were happier. For sure. But, I think the main thing is we were pretty much financially independent because we had very, very little debt. We never owned a home. We never, we paid cash for whatever we wanted. We saved up for it if we needed to and then bought it cash. And not having the debt was what liberated us, essentially. Whether we chose to be overlanders or not, just not having that debt already gave us a massive amount of freedom to be able to make choices of what we wanted to do with our lives. And, we used to have massive amounts of debt. I had a company that failed and it took me 3 years of working every day, to finally pay off that debt and get ourselves free and clear. But once we were free and clear, the option was ours. The world was our oyster. So that was the big part of it for us is, doing things differently. Finding happiness, finding satisfaction in things that aren't, necessarily purchased with a credit card.
Yeah, and what an excellent education for your kids to give them that lesson early on in life. It's such a hard thing to teach, and I think many parents grapple with that. People that have been into debt, issues themselves. How do you relay that information to your children? Normally they just don't want to hear it, but you guys have found a way to get them out there and experience life debt free. And now that they see what they can actually do with that and have that decision to make in the first place is probably going to be a huge benefit.
Yeah, we indoctrinate them very well.
Good for you.
There's a meme going around the internet that said modern slaves aren't in chains, they're in debt. So we'll discuss something like that with our kids. I remember going to school and you'd be taught history and geography and science. and economics, but you weren't taught how to open a bank account, how to manage your money, how to not get into debt, how to this, that, and the other. And we made so many mistakes in our 20s and early 30s, which really it took us years to get through all of that and come out the other side. So we've got that experience that we can teach our children and say, this is what happens when you get a credit card. Yes, you might need a credit card when you're older, but this is what happens when you're in debt. And we explain to them in no uncertain terms that this is not how they want to be, because that's not financial success to us. You might have the cars, the house, the clothing, everything that you think you should have and to appear successful. But if you've got $1 in the bank and the guy next door has got all this stuff, but he's $1 million in debt, you're richer than he is.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I can't agree more. So let's talk about the setup. You guys decided to choose a Land Rover 130. This is I actually didn't even know about the 130 until I was researching you guys. So it's a longer version of the 110, but it's more of a pickup chassis, or I should say pickup body with 4 doors. And you guys outfitted this to be your Overlander vehicle. So go into a little bit of how you set this thing up and describe it for the listeners so they can imagine what it is you guys are living out of as a family of 4 each day.
Okay. So essentially, yes, it's a double cab pickup. It's got a load rating. It only weighs 2,086 kilograms. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is in pounds. Which for a pretty large pickup is very light because the body is all aluminium. But it's got a payload of 1,500 kilograms, which is quite a lot. So for us, it was a perfect base vehicle. The kids were a lot smaller back then, which made it perfect for us. So we had the seating for 4, and we could carry all the crap that Luisa thinks she needs in her life. I'm going to get smacked for that one. Excuse me. So essentially, I decided to kit it out all myself. I did a little bit of woodwork when I was in school, and I did okay. So I thought, I can tackle this. And so essentially what we did is we popped a rooftop tent on the top. We got the biggest one we could find. When flipped open, it stays on the roof, obviously, and it's 2.4 meters by 2.4 meters. So it's pretty big, large enough for the 4 of us to sleep in. It also has an annex, a tent that zips along the bottom, which gives you a bit of extra space and protection from the elements. Then at the rear, we had an aluminium canopy put onto the load area. And in there, I built a drawer system for 2 fridges. And then on the other side, it has 6 of those black wolf packs. And then on top of that, I made a load base. And on top of that, I had another 6 big plastic crates with all of our clothing, homeschooling, computer stuff, surf gear, you name it. On the outside, you have 3 flaps on the aluminium canopy. The one gives you access to the rear. The one gives you access to the side, which I blocked off and created a little kitchen area with frying pans and cups and saucers and knives and forks, all the stuff you need for a kitchen. And then on the other side of the canopy, there we would store in a storage hatch that I made. You could store oils, recovery gear, extra beer, shoes, and whatever else Luisa can fit in there. We had jerry cans on the roof, a bull bar in the front with a winch, 9,500 pounds, and we kept it pretty much simple. We had a raised air intake for deep water traveling. We set up in the African way because unless you're living in Florida or the southern USA, you're probably going to have weather where half the year it's not great to be going out in a roof tent. And so for the Southern Hemisphere, it was a very good setup for us. So essentially, we live outside, but we have the tent space that we go into to sleep and relax. But yeah, we've pretty much been outside for the last 4.5 years.
Yeah.
You'd have to be, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should see our skin. We look like we're in our 80s. Not you, mother. She looks like she's in her 20s, of course, bro.
I'm waiting for the slap.
Yeah, it's coming, mate. Don't worry.
He's balding up.
So how do you deal with living in such a tight space? I mean, we're talking a little bit less than 8 foot by 8 foot, and that makes a mighty tiny apartment. Obviously, like you said, you spend a lot of time outdoors. But how is the family handling it? You guys been on the road for quite a while, and you're still together. That's a good sign.
Well, Graeme and I, we had our own business, so we'd been working together with each other for about 10 years. So we were pretty, with each other almost 24 hours a day before that anyway.
Sitting next to each other.
Yeah. So, and then, the kids were pretty small then, and, it wasn't an issue. Now my he's actually turning 17 next week, and my daughter's 11. So obviously there's that element where, he's at that time, the teenage years. So that does get difficult because of the close proximity that he's with when he's sitting next to his sister. But our kids are pretty lovable, so they love the attention. So I don't think for them it's an issue when we get into a house like this and we do a house sitting stint, even if it's for 2 weeks, they love it because they can actually then say, okay, well, this is my room, this is my area, and they get that time apart. But once they're in the Land Rover, they're best of buddies again because they realize there's no one else on the road. The only kids that they meet are the people that we, friends that we make, that we find along the way, or, at campsites that we go to. So they realize that they have to be friends with each other. They don't have much of a choice.
We've become like an old age, not old age, what's the word? Like a historic nomadic family where we're completely dependent almost on each other.
Right.
Everyone's got their own role within the family. We're a unit. We're a tight unit. Sometimes we're not so tight. It's a problem with being so close to someone for such a long time. Eventually you get used to it and you don't even think about it anymore. For some people, I can imagine it could be very difficult. We know like a woman in South Africa before we left, and she said to me, "You're going to be going for so long with your children?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "I can't imagine spending a day with my child that close, never mind." And then she blushed and she felt terrible for saying it. But I think for a lot of people, it's like, I'm really happy when my kid goes to sleep at night. I love them so much, but they're much better when they're sleeping. So yeah, there's a lot of personality, obviously. There's a lot of, to and fro, and people who see us in our natural environment tend to think we're a little bit crazy. But we depend on each other, we rely on each other, and we're a tight unit.
Yeah, I think it probably, there's some element of maybe certain people can't pull this off, but I think it's probably more so that how you guys go about it and how your relationship with your kids and the whole family unit together makes this the way it is. You guys sound like you have a lot of fun with each other. You obviously crack a lot of jokes and joke around and probably blow off steam that way. So teaching the kids, about how to live in close quarters with family like that is a huge thing, and the relationship that they're going to come out of with it, when they get older and you guys are off the road, is probably invaluable.
Yeah, that's part of it. Let's wait and see. I mean, you never know. The accountant's son becomes a hippie, and the hippie's son becomes an accountant. But if you have to ask my children, we've had it before on social media where I've actually just said, "Hey, if you guys want to ask any question you want, ask my kids and they'll answer." And that's what they did. And the kids answered honestly with no pressure. I wasn't even in the room. And they typed their answers to all the questions. This was on Facebook, on our Facebook page. And people were asking, "Oh, do you like traveling? Wouldn't you rather be doing something else?" And the kids are coming back saying, "No, they love traveling. They wouldn't rather be doing anything else." So, they're not just passengers. They're in,
Right.
they're part of the team. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, my son has been told, he's 17, so he's going to be 18 soon. We almost lost him to a beautiful girl in Argentina when he was 15. He said, "Oh, well, that's it. I'm leaving. I'm going with her." And I'm like, "Yeah, right, whatever." But, it's his choice when he gets older. If he wants to stay with us, then he's got to, help out a bit more. He's got to be more active with the hard work, with the mechanical work, working around the camp. He can't be a little kid anymore. But if he wants to carry on traveling with us for the next 20 years, he's welcome to do it, as long as he's contributing.
Right.
And the same goes to my daughter. So we're not in no rush to get rid of our children by any stretch.
No.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk about where you guys have been. Like I said, you kind of made a couple of laps around Africa and then headed north. So where have you taken this beast?
2009. Yeah, okay. We used to do a whole bunch of camping with her and stuff. We had a bunch of Land Rovers before. About 2010, we drove. It was 30,000 kilometers. That's like 16,000 miles from Cape Town up to Dar es Salaam through Mozambique, Malawi, Tanzania, then back down, Malawi, Zambia, Botswana a little bit, Namibia, then back into South Africa. And then when we were talking earlier about the addiction, then we realized we were kind of screwed because we didn't want to do anything else with ourselves. So every chance we got, we'd head back to Mozambique or Malawi, which was hard work. It wasn't a typical vacation, but that's not what we were after. And then eventually in 2012, we put the Land Rover in a container, shipped it to Uruguay, and then we were supposed to head down to Ushuaia, which is as far south as you can go on the planet by road. And instead, we decided, look, we need to head up to Rio because, you can't go to South America and not go to Rio. And before we knew it, we were almost past the equator, right the way up in northern Brazil. Then we rushed kind of down and looped back around through Uruguay and Argentina. Eventually went back to Brazil, then back down, made it all the way down to Ushuaia, then up along the coast, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia. And Colombia, we were supposed to ship over to Panama and head up to Alaska. But we weren't done with South America, and I don't think South America was done with us quite yet. We hadn't spent much time in the Amazon, and we had fallen in love with Brazil, actually the whole continent. So we thought, no, we're not leaving yet. We put some big mud tires on the Landy because we planned to go a route through the Amazon, through Venezuela, then through the Amazon, back into northern Brazil. And we did that. We went Venezuela, back into northern Brazil, then cut across to British Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana, then across from French Guyana into Brazil, took a ferry for 3 days with the Land Rover on the Amazon River to Belém, and then eventually landed up where we'd left off the last time we had been in northern Brazil. So essentially we circumnavigated the entire South American continent. And this took us just over 2 years. Or just under 2 years.
Under 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then from Brazil, we went back down to Uruguay, Argentina, up to Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, and then across to Panama on a ferry. Luckily, there was one ferry running. And then through every single country in Central America except for El Salvador, Mexico, then to the US, and wow, the US is amazing. Through up to Alaska, back down, and then around the West Coast a whole bunch, and now we're in Baja. So, yeah.
That is a lot of miles. I saw that, I think the last report I saw that you guys had 315,000 kilometers on the thing, which is almost 200,000 miles on the vehicle. That's a lot of driving.
Yeah, that's a lot of fuel. That's a lot of driving, yeah. I think from Uruguay to Alaska and back down, I think we've done just 100,000 miles, something like that. Yeah, so it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's far. I mean, we could have driven around the whole planet. In the distance that we drove just from Uruguay around South America and up to Alaska and back down. We could have done the whole world tour by now.
No doubt. Well, what would you say, Luisa, is the most surprising thing that you've learned being on the road and living like this that you never would have expected?
Oh, sure. There's quite a few things. I think it's the fact that I'm not as concerned about my future. I know that sounds terrible, but I'm not. I used to be very meticulous and uptight and stressed about, I had to have, that amount of money in my bank, or I had to have this done, or I had to have that. I'm a great list maker. And I tend to not do that anymore, which is good and bad. But I think I've just let myself rely on Graeme a lot more. So I'm not that authoritative. I'm not. I don't be the boss.
Right.
And I think it's just, I rely on other people a lot more now as well, which I think as a person you grow a lot more on the road, and you just learn to let go of a lot of things that you had issues with before. So I think it's a good lesson for people to realize that people are good people. There are fantastic people out there, and you don't really have to worry about getting on the road and about your kids or about food or the petrol money or whatever. We've been broke on several occasions, and we've always managed to make it work, which, for me was my biggest fear was, running out of money.
This is the thing. We both grew up in apartheid South Africa, and we both had middle class, working class upbringings, both children of divorces, and both of us have seen some pretty hard times where, there's very little opportunity. So for us to be broke isn't as big deal as it is for many people, because we know we've got potential and we know that we'll be okay. And also, things like breaking down in Peru at 16,000 feet, and you're in the middle of nowhere and the sun's setting and there's ice all over, and you're thinking, oh my God, this could be potentially deadly, Once you've been through that, I think it gives life a bit more perspective. And I think I've seen Luisa change. Is where, she was the boss, man. She was back home. That was it. She would give me my list every morning, and I'd have to jump and run. And she was a nightmare, but she was a wonderful nightmare, and she was great. Driven. And, and when we started traveling, she was always like a little bit paranoid that I'm just trying to take the power. And she had some weird control issues, but she doesn't really have that anymore. She knows she's the boss. I still do what I'm told.
So she lets you use the pants every once in a while in the family.
Oh no! I'm the admiral, dude. I still wear the pants because she's the boss.
Fair enough.
It's levels of responsibility. Well, and I think what my point is, if the shit hits the fan, the buck stops with me. If the wheels come off and it all goes screwed up and upside down, I am responsible. And I've proven to Luisa that I can be responsible. And I think maybe giving you a bit of peace of mind, maybe. I don't know.
No, absolutely.
It was a great answer. I know I put you on the spot asking it, but the hardest thing to do sometimes when you're embarking on any kind of adventure is to let go, and most people do have those concerns. Like you said, Luisa, what is my future? Oh, I'm going to leave my job. Well, what am I going to do after that? I can't possibly leave my job to go out on this adventure, this expedition. And the fact that you were able to let go and realize that you can get out there and deal with things as they come and not sweat what is in your future is, that's a huge learning lesson, and probably one that everybody needs to go through.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. It's a lot easier than people think, and also very difficult at the end of the day. But
I suppose it's like giving birth. I would know. All right, I know these things.
Of course you do.
You got to put out a watermelon, and you must be petrified. You got to give birth to this thing, but then when it's out, there's the baby. Was that a good analogy? How was that? A great metaphor. Thank you very much. It was like giving birth. But yeah, leaving home. I don't want to keep hijacking, but leaving home, just all those things that you've thought that you're supposed to have. You're supposed to have 2-3 cars. You're supposed to have the flat screens and the great clothing and the Italian shoes and the insurance policies and the private schools and all of that crap. And unraveling yourself from all of that it's so stressful. You don't sleep. We didn't sleep for 2 years, from like a year and a half. Once we made the decision to actually do this full time, or at least do the Argentina to Alaska journey, we weren't sleeping. We were fighting. We were drinking too much wine. It was not easy at all. Massive amounts of stress. But then we got over it, and we started traveling, and the sky didn't fall on our heads, and we started relaxing, and we were spending way less money than we did at home because we were living hand to mouth and living very simply. And then the stress just generally kind of just dropped off.
Yeah. And something that was meant to be a year and a half of a trip has now been,
4 years?
Yeah, over 4 years now. So it can't be that bad, right?
Hey, ASP listeners, have you ever tried a Kind bar? You may have seen them in your local grocery store, coffee shop, or gym. They make delicious, healthy snacks using whole ingredients. Well, if you're ready to try some tasty and healthy snacks, we've got a special deal for you. Try 20 Kind snacks from 7 of their unique product lines with their new snack pack. You can enjoy 50% off and free shipping on your first snack pack when you subscribe to it through their Snack Club. Snack Club is Kind's monthly snack subscription service. Go to kindsnacks.com/sports for more details on that. I love their pressed bars like the mango apple chia bars, or I pretty much guarantee you're going to love their breakfast bars first thing in the morning when you climb out of that hammock. So take a minute and see what they're creating over at kindsnacks.com/sports and get your 50% off plus free shipping on your first order. That's kindsnacks.com/sports.
By now you certainly know who Bent Gate is. That's for a great reason. Bent Gate Mountaineering has been sponsoring the Adventure Sports Podcast almost from the beginning, and we really appreciate that. They've made it possible for all the great shows to continue coming your way. We want to say thanks by reminding you to go to them for your backcountry gear. If you live in Colorado, then just stop by their store in Golden. If not, go to bentgate.com. They have what you need, from the latest ultralight gear to the tried and true classics for climbing, hiking, and camping, like Arc'teryx, Hilleberg, Nemo, Western Mountaineering, and many more. Need advice? They have you covered there too. Their staff are passionate adventurers who can offer help from their own experiences. Bentgate also hosts lots of events and speakers. Check out their website to see the schedule and to see all of their products. Help take care of the Adventure Sports Podcast by getting your gear from Bentgate Mountaineering.
Well, that brings the question up. A lot of people, who might think about doing something like this, I think that's the first concern. And I've had that concern myself. We talked about going and living on a travel trailer.
Yeah.
And one of the concerns is, how is the family dynamic going to exist, change, morph? Like you said, or like Graeme said, there's some point where it finally set in, but it took you guys a while to get to that point. So what would be some advice for people who wanted to do something like this with their family? What's some advice that might help them over that hump and get them through it?
Well, first, start small. Don't sell the ranch. Don't go jump into a decision like, let's get a motorhome and drive around America or something. Start small, man. Get a little pickup or whatever, throw a tent on the top, or even just ground tents. Go off for a weekend. Keep it simple. Don't buy all the gear. Keep it simple. Go out. Check the weather. Have fun. Don't try and overdo it the first time out. Have a good time. Come back. Did I enjoy that? Yeah, that was all right. Let's go a little bit longer. We'll go a little bit further. Yeah, and slowly start building up into more of this becoming your recreation. And if the whole family enjoys it and everyone's getting along and you've got your systems in place, then you can start investing money in it and investing more time in it. But I think that really is the starting point. Actually, in our second book, which is coming out now, called Travel the Planet, Overland, I've got a whole section called How to
Motivate the Significant Other.
How to motivate your significant other. And it uses neuro-linguistic programming, sex, and chocolate.
Interesting. I'll have to pick that one.
Dude, this is solid advice, man. Guys, it's usually the guys. The guys want to get out and go and do the exploring and stuff. Women are nest builders. I don't want to sound like a chauvinist, but this is a generalization. It's a stereotype. And so many times on our travels, it was never the woman that came to us and said, man, if only I could get my husband to go camping more. It's always the other way around. So we saw, this is what you got to do is you got to make sure your spouse is happy. Be it male or female. If this is what you want to do, if you want to go out travel, you want to go climb, you want to go surf, you want to do whatever, you're a family, you've got kids to worry about. It's give and take. But you've got to, help your significant other get into it and start enjoying it and not expecting them to go from 0 to 100 straight away.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to ruin that whole situation. Just jump in and see what happens.
Yeah.
And most people aren't going to swim at that point. They're going to give up.
That's right. It's like, yeah, we're going to the desert for 2 weeks, and you can't bring your hairdryer. And dude, you'll come back, you'll never go camping again. You won't last 2 weeks. You'll last 3 days. She'll be throwing sand on the meat, on the fire, and yeah.
There's sabotage involved, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. So yeah, my advice would be take it easy and really grow as a family. Get the kids started as young as possible and marry right. Dude, marry right. That's like the easiest thing, right?
Yeah, but you don't know when you get married.
No, you go camping.
Change,
you go camping on your honeymoon.
Say, right?
Yeah, women change after they got the ring on.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, we could have a whole another episode on that. Maybe we should actually, but let's. I digress.
Relationship advice from the Bells.
Graeme, you and I will talk later on, okay?
I got you, man. Don't worry about
it. All right. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about the books. 2 things. Obviously, the one question people have is, how do you do it? All right, you guys weren't independently wealthy when you set out. You had a little bit of money to start out with, but obviously you need to find a way to work on the road and bring in income. So I presume that the books are a piece of that. So let's dig into them a little bit. Tell me about the first book and how people can get it.
All right, excellent. The first book's called We Will Be Free. It's a declaration of independence. It's all those questions that everyone asks. How did you decide? What is the story? When, where have you been? What about the children? What about education? And tell us about your stories and experiences and breakdowns. It's all of that. So it starts off basically, in 2009 when Luisa's dad was, still with us, and he was a major influence in our lives. And he kind of passed away suddenly, and all he wanted to do was travel. And Luisa and I had always had that wanderlust. And so, yeah, it's how we started becoming overlanders and how we went through the transition from normal corporate professionals to dirty, scrungy, broke ass overlanders. And it's also the experiences that we have along the way. Remember, we grew up in isolated apartheid South Africa. Our cultural experiences were limited to, what was around us and American TV shows, maybe the odd British TV show. And, we didn't have this world experience. I mean, I traveled a bit when I was a kid, but I didn't do very well. And Louisa traveled a bit when she was young, but, we met when we were very young, and we shacked up and started this life. And we immediately got into what we thought we were supposed to do, which was building the nest, getting the house and the toys and all that stuff together. So We Will Be Free is basically how we broke out of that. The psychology behind it as well, the philosophy of, you only live once. What are you going to do with this one life that you have? There's one life on this planet. What are you going to do with it? And for me, I didn't really ever have a choice. I was miserable because I knew before I was traveling like this, I knew that my life was pretty much, I was a father, and we had a business, and there was meaning to my life, but it wasn't what I'd imagined my life could be and should be. And if I was lying in the grave one day, still thinking, hopefully, because what would I say? What would my life have been like? And also for our children, how do we raise them? Do we allow them to become wage slaves? So this is what the book is all about. So it covers the philosophy, the psychology, and the travel around Africa, around South America, the circumnavigation, and stops in Ecuador.
Yes.
Last year. Yes. That's where that ends. And it was before we set off to get on the ferry up to Panama. And the book's been doing pretty well. I mean, I've had some really good reviews. I think I've had one bad review, and that was by
some woman that read the Mills and Boons novel. So there you go.
There was sex in the book, man. I just don't think there was enough sex. You live in a tent with 2 kids.
There's not much of that.
You know what? That's one thing I can say. For families who think about traveling and stuff, you got to have that special little tent for date night. Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
I said, but anyway.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on. So the book's been doing really well. We're getting I like to call it a little bit of a cult classic because we're completely self-published, self-financed, self-marketed. So the people who are reading it and hearing about it, a lot of it's word of mouth. And what's very interesting to me is that we track our sales on Amazon of like Kindle or whatever, and every single month the sales are increasing. It's not dipping, and if anything, it's getting higher and higher and higher as word spreads. And that's how I want it to be. I want it to be the kind of book that somebody finished reading and it's honest and it's inspiring, and they go, hey man, you got to read this, and they share it out. And that's really where it's kind of going.
Well, that's great. I mean, the book sounds like it's pure inspiration, and that's our goal on the show is to inspire people to get out there and do something great. So you guys also ran a Kickstarter campaign for your second book, and your second book, what is it called? Travel the Planet Overland. And you guys did very well with your Kickstarter campaign. And as I understand it, you're in the process of editing that and getting it out now. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the Kickstarter, yes, it was fantastic, and we had a great amount of backing on that, which was, it's pretty good.
It's okay, yeah. 400% of our target.
Yeah. So, the book is basically a guide on how to do what we do. So it's not, it's not the Overlander's Bible. There's the Overlander's Handbook, was written by Chris Scott. There's other guys who are very textbook in their approach to giving advice for overlanding and how to prepare vehicles and stuff. I'd like to talk about using sex and chocolates to, what's the word? And propaganda to indoctrinate your spouse, So it gives you a lot of the factual stuff, but at the same time, I think it's a bit more of a fun read. And the whole idea is that when we started out, we made a lot of mistakes. We wasted a lot of money. We did a lot of things the wrong way. And now we've been living on the road. And I mean, of 4 years, 80% of that time was in the tent. We don't stay at hotels. We don't stay at hostels. We don't have the budget for that. So we've gone to far off places where, even it's very rare for white people to go, if I could put it like that. It's pretty out there. So we've learned a lot from doing that. And that's the whole goal with this book, is to take our beautiful photos from all over, from Africa, from South America, from the Americas, to put that all together and something beautiful. I want it to be like, Radiohead in Rainbows when that came out. And you got the record in the post, and it had this folder, and it was just, you don't want to really listen to the record because it was just too gorgeous. I want something like that where it's just beautiful content. It's great to look at, and it's really inspiring. That was really what kind of drove it. And of course, Louise is the push behind this. She drives all of this because she started talking about this when we'd been on the road for like a year or something, because she's like, oh man, learning how to make fires on a daily basis, camping, making meat, making food, finding camping, saving money, dealing with children, educating the children, the different kinds of overlanders you meet on the road, the kind of vehicles we see. There's just so much information that anyone who wants to get into this whole overlanding gig, this is the kind of book that disseminates all that information, really kind of lays it out in a way that it's beautiful, it's inspiring, but it also gives you all the information you need to make an informed decision.
Yeah, it looks like you guys have done that. I mean, just looking at your Instagram account, you have amazing pictures. And talk about inspiration. I mean, if that's not enough to get you to go buy the book, I don't know what is, because you have a way of capturing what you're doing out there and truly inspiring people to maybe get out there and try something similar. Nothing says you have to pack up a Land Rover 130 and dump it all and go live on the road permanently, but maybe try a little taste of it, like you said, dip your toe in the water.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're into climbing or surfing, or you know what, if let's say you've got any of those sports that are a passion for you, make your passion part of your lifestyle. So, if you go climbing, half of the thrill is it's the camping, it's the outdoors, it's actually getting out there and going, it's packing up, it's having the right gear. If you can make your passion part of your lifestyle, then you're winning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. So let's tell them where they can go learn more about you guys and where they can find these books.
Okay, well, we've got a Facebook page, which is A2A, which is A and then the number 2A Expedition. That's the same. The website is www.a2aexpedition.com. The Instagram account
is Graeme. That's GRAEME.R.Bell. And I've only had it running for about a year or so, and I've already got quite a few thousand likes. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Right.
And what else is there? Twitter we don't really use because it's just with our lifestyles being offline so often. It just doesn't work for us.
Yeah, but the book is the first book, We Will Be Free, is available via the website. It shows the We Will Be Free book there,
and Amazon,
and on Amazon as well. And then the Travel the Planet Overland is available for pre-order before it gets published, which will be shipped out probably in late August, and that can also be purchased via the website. That link will be going up later today. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, it's good timing.
And I really appreciate it if your listeners are interested in what we do and they can support us. That'll be fantastic because our plan is to just travel the entire planet and eventually have a library of 6 or 7 books and then buy a ranch in Argentina and drink wine and eat cheese all day.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah, that's my plan. That's all I've got planned. Wine and cheese.
See, Luisa, you don't need to worry about your future. He's got it all figured out.
Yeah, there we go. No, on a more serious note, if they do have any questions, they can just shoot us a message via Facebook or get in touch with us via the website.
Okay.
Yeah, the books are pretty much our only source of income at the moment. What else do we do to make money?
Articles?
I write articles for, I forget what I do. I write articles for Expedition Portal and Adventure Journal. And I'm hoping to get a few other the good publishers out behind me. So that's okay for us. Literally, our expenses are pretty low. So we don't have to do a heck of a lot to be comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard that your budget is like $66 a day for the entire family. Is that right?
Yeah, depending. Yeah. That's over a year. So it'll include shipping, flights, ferries, health insurance, emergencies, beer.
Yeah, I don't know if it includes your beer consumption.
It doesn't include beer. It includes beer. Beer is like $30 of that.
Sinner's tax.
Sin tax.
Yeah.
But it's everything. It's our fuel. It's our accommodation. It's you name it.
And you can actually, you can get by cheaper. Unfortunately, we're South Africans, so we like to eat meat and drink beer and have some nice wine. So we don't. My theory is, if you're going to be doing this as a full-time thing, as this is your lifestyle, at least enjoy it while you're doing it, and you don't have to just eat vegan food or
we do try and make some good choices when we buy our food, though.
Yes.
We get like grass-fed organic meat when we can. We're very responsible.
Yeah.
And our footprint, what do you call it? Our ecological footprint is tiny.
Yeah.
This is true.
We drive a car, but pretty much as someone in Seattle who drives to work and back probably drives as much in a year as we do, if not a bit more.
Well, you think of simple product consumption. You guys are not out there buying products because you can't put products in your Land Rover. So, the people, if we're out there buying a ton of products, you might drive a nice little Prius that gets great fuel economy. But if you order a ton of stuff on the web and, ships have to bring it across the ocean and UPS has to drop it off at your house, well, you just added to that footprint, didn't you?
Yeah.
And this is the thing. We buy as much local as we can. So, we don't have the packaging that goes with all the foodstuffs you got a store in the US and everything's packaged up the yin-yang,
Right.
it's insane.
Yeah.
You buy from a local grocer and it is, it's a plastic bag. Yeah.
Well, that's easier in the third world or developing nations. But yeah, that's a big part of it as well, is our impact on the environment is minuscule. And it'll stay that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can have the odd steak without feeling too terrible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. So how about a little fun with some stories? So all these years that you guys have been doing this, there must be some fun stories about something that was truly one of the best experiences you had, and then maybe a story about the time when things didn't go right.
Man, put me on the spot.
Best.
That's so difficult. Best experience. Well, okay. Absolutely the best, without doubt, for me was when we drove into a city called Macapá, which is on the northern banks of the Amazon River. And as we drove into the town, we were in a traffic circle, and we just became completely surrounded by these off-road vehicles who were completely covered in mud. And these guys had just finished this huge expedition in the Amazon jungle. And our vehicle was also covered in mud because we'd also been driving off the road and that. And we just became part of their group. And they took us off into the swamps. And for 5 days, we lived on barbecued chicken, steak, and beer. And nothing else. And we just partied with these guys. And then they organized us a ferry to take us for the 3 days from Macapá to Belém. And Belém is on the coastline of Brazil. And yeah, for 3 days, man, we got onto this ferry. It was a flatbed ferry. There was only two other vehicles on there with us. They allowed us to open our roof tent. They plugged us into the generator. And for 3 days, we just cruised down the Amazon River and down along the tributaries, and that was mind blowing to me to actually lie in my roof tent, which I'd bought in South Africa, and to lie there at the window and just watch the trees, the jungle go by, to see the little villages and stuff, and to sit around and just watch it all, and you just be on that Amazon River. To me, that was mind blowing. That was the best 3 days of my life, other than when I met my beautiful.
Oh, he's good at throwing those things in there. I've got to get this book.
She's gonna smack me. Still, I'm trying to get out of trouble. So that for me, that was fantastic. And we saw, the beautiful little things like, your old school buses, American school buses.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is, but I think it's like 10,000 miles. After 10,000 miles, they have to be sold. I know in Utah, for instance, and there on the Amazon River, they take those American school buses, those yellow buses, they convert them into floating.
School buses?
School classes.
Yeah.
Really?
And sure, and it floats around and it's still a bus because it picks the kids up and takes them back home. But it's a floating schoolroom. And that to me was just so interesting. All the people that dug out canoes, these little communities set up just on the banks of the river, just, trying to survive in this harsh environment. That was fantastic to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. Very cool. Well, it sounds like those 3 days were worth everything. I mean, just to get out there and experience those 3 days, the rest of your adventure could never existed. You'd probably be just as happy to have experienced that.
Yeah. And the fact that we drove there with our kids on our own, unsupported, on our own, no convoy, no nothing, that was pretty incredible. It's humbling. A lot of people might get a big head and get all egotistical and think they're pretty amazing, but it's really kind of humbling to be in a place like that. And it puts life in perspective. So that changed my life. Those 3 days on that river changed my life.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So how about a time when things went sideways on you?
So we were in this little camp in Ecuador, and the one morning I woke up and I was doing some freelance work for the people that I sold the business to, and I checked my emails and I had noticed that all our money had been taken out of our business bank account, and I thought it was someone had taken, it was theft or fraud, and I was like, I screamed, oh my God, they've taken all our money and everything. Oh, okay, we'll phone the bank, sort it out. It turned out my awesome accountant screwed up a few years ago, and he never corrected the mistake. And our receiver of revenue, which is your IRS, took all our money.
Oh no! Those your biggest fears came true.
Yeah.
Exactly, all
of our money. We literally had a couple of grand in each of our accounts. When I say grand, I don't mean dollars. I mean South African rand. We had our share account, which had a little bit of money in it. Yeah. But essentially, they cleaned us out.
Like, took everything.
Boom.
So, that took us, that was a huge, man, it was terrible. And for months, then we had to unfortunately dig into our shares accounts and our credit cards, which we had no debt on. It took me 3 years, but I eventually got the money back, some of the money back. but yeah.
That was terrifying because we didn't, we're in Ecuador. We don't know anyone and we don't have money. I mean, you go to the supermarket and, you give them the card, and I don't know if you've ever had that feeling when you're kind of going, I hope this goes through. I really, really hope this goes through.
Oh, we've all been 20 years old.
Yeah. You know that feeling. You know how embarrassing it is when your card doesn't go through. You know what? That used to be embarrassing for us. Now we just turn around and go, oh, well, you know what? We're travelers. These things happen. But yeah, that was the worst. Ecuador waking up, all our money gone. That sucked. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that makes me think, here I asked a family who's been living on the road for probably 5 years now in an overlander and has traveled thousands and thousands of miles. I asked them what time things went wrong, and you give me a taxman story. So I can only deduct that the rest of the trip is going pretty well for you guys then.
Oh, yeah.
No, but what compares to losing all your money? I mean, you can't go anywhere. You can't go back home. You can't put fuel in the vehicle. You're like, oh, I'm screwed. But you know what? We made a plan. But yeah.
Yeah, we've never had, touch wood, we haven't had any issues in terms of the people. We had one issue in Uruguay where it was a guy that was a little doped up and he was looking for trouble, but that was it. We haven't had anyone try and threaten us. Our breakdowns were breakdowns that Graeme and I could handle.
Well, the breakdowns were pretty bad.
The breakdowns were pretty bad, but they weren't life-threatening, or they weren't.
Well, the one was in Peru. Actually, no. What are you talking about? Okay, so remember I told you earlier we're in Peru, 16,000 feet, and the engine the water starts spewing out of the engine. That was bad. It was winter. The sun was going down. The temperature is going to drop to minus whatever. There were massive folds of ice over the rocks. It was 2 feet deep, this ice. I don't know what you call that. It's like glacial ice. It was how cold it was. And we were just in a tent. Then there was a time in Brazil in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, that a brand new wheel bearing I just put in imploded. And we had to work until 4 a.m. to get back on the road again, but we managed to do it.
Yeah, but every single one of those times, the time in Peru, those guys came to help out, and in Brazil, you managed to fix it.
I managed to fix it.
No, but the thing is, the RS thing, it was something that took years to resolve. It wasn't like an immediate fix, you know what I mean? So, okay, we're having a fat discussion. Sorry.
I'll blow my referee whistle here.
Well, I'm right.
Sometimes it seems like we're on the same journey, but we're on completely different trips.
You're having different experiences, and that's okay, because that makes multiple books that you can write about it, doesn't it? 2 different stories.
There we go.
Well, I think what's interesting in your answer is that those stories that you shared, in the end there, had somebody been out for a week, 2 weeks, a month, those would have been the stories that I would have heard about things going sideways, because that would have been the big event. But I think what what comes across there is that you guys have been doing this long enough that those are just little bumps in the road. They're not big stories to tell to you guys because you know how to handle them. You've dealt with them. And it's just like, well, I kind of expect that to happen. So we'll deal with it when we get there. So that's kind of interesting that you didn't choose those to share, that the Taxman story was the big event. And no doubt, I agree. That is a big event when you're out there relying on that bank account.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We decided from the beginning we're going to do all our own mechanical work, even though we don't have that much mechanical experience. We plan. There's contingency plans. We prepare ourselves. So there's things that you can prepare for, and you always prepare for the worst as well. So when that happens, but there's something that you can work with, and you can get back in control of the situation. That's fine. Like a breakdown in the middle of nowhere. You can drop, stop, and roll. You can be calm. You can fix it. Something like your bank account's getting cleaned out, and you're 10,000 miles away. There's nothing you can do about it. That's serious.
Yeah,
that hurts.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Well, let's wrap it up with where you guys are headed next. What are your plans? Obviously, you plan to continue doing this, but I think I saw that you're planning to make some changes, some improvements on the Land Rover. So what's down the road?
First, the change to the Land Rover, we'd like to change it into a live-in vehicle. We're going to build a pod and put it on the back. So take off the tent, take off the rear load areas, even take out the back seats. I'll put in seat belts with the bench for the kids. But basically, we're going to make a pod with our own hands out of refrigerator truck paneling, whatever we can scrounge together. And we're going to build a pod on the back of the vehicle with a pop top so that we can face extreme weather and we can urban camp and we can really go much further than the roof tent has been fantastic. But it limits us what we can do in terms of like urban camping and extreme weather. And,
The thing is, from here, we plan to redo the build in the US or Canada. And then from there, we're heading on over to Europe. And, we'll be arriving there in March, which would be winter in most of the countries. So, it's only when we hit the Balkan states that it'll be warm enough to not warrant having an indoor living area. And then from there across to Asia, and then we're still open to ideas. So
Europe. So we'll probably ship to the UK or Ireland, maybe even to mainland Europe. It's all about visas because we've got African passports. I've got a British passport as well, but the rest of the family's only got South African. So visas are a big issue for us. So we want to go down through Europe. I'd love to go to Scandinavia, but I don't know if we'll have time this time around. Go through Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, or up around the Stans. I'd love to go to northern Afghanistan if we can. Through India, Nepal, down into Burma, Laos, Thailand, that whole thing. And that's the next stage, which will probably be a year and a half too, for us to get from Europe to Southeast Asia.
That's too cool. I can't wait to follow you guys and watch you on your journey and be inspired by what it is you guys are doing. So I hope you keep it up indefinitely and keep writing books, keep putting stuff out there to inspire the rest of us to do it.
Cool. I've really enjoyed talking with you, Travis, as well. So, I mean, we can do this again if we're in Turkmenistan and we've got Wi-Fi. It'd be great to give you a live from the field report.
Well, I would absolutely love that. In fact, I want you to get back to me, or I'll watch to see when you do it. I want to hear about your experiences going down through Iran, because everybody I talk to or hear from or read about who has gone through Iran, who has had the good fortune to be able to get into the country, says it's absolutely beautiful. It's like one of the most amazing countries they visited. So I'm always pretty curious about that, because obviously what we get in the news is quite a bit different story. So I'll be interested to hear that. So I'd love to have you guys back on for sure.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's what we've seen everywhere we go, is what you see on the ground and what you see in the media are completely different creatures. Yeah. So we've had friends who've driven around the world, and a few, obviously, because these are our people, and of people who I know have gone through the whole Europe, Asia, etc. I always ask them, which is your favorite country? You've been around the world, not your favorite, but I know it's difficult to answer, but which country really did it for you? And people come back and say Turkey. so many people came back and said Turkey was absolutely fantastic.
Right.
So Turkey, we're also really looking forward to all that.
Well, cool. Definitely let's catch up after you've done that. No, I would like to hear about it. So,
Cool.
all right, guys. Well, it's been awesome talking to you. I appreciate your time on the show. I will, as usual, get your links up there on the website along with your episode and make it easy for people to go visit you and contact you and find your books. I know I need to get my hands on your books as well, because just talking to you and reading about you guys, it is true inspiration, and it makes me want to get out there and do a little bit of that too. I mean, that's the problem with doing this podcast, is I want to do a little bit of everything I talk to people about, but I think it just sounds awesome. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, Travis. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Travis. It's been awesome.
All right. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Until the next time, be sure to swing by and visit us on patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. If you become a patron of the show, you can be involved in our giveaways as well as all of the new content that we're going to put up behind the Patreon paywall. So we hope to see you there.